You're listening to a lecture by the St. Jerome Center for Catechesis, a Catholic website dedicated to providing Catholics and non-Catholics with material about the Catholic faith. In this lecture in the series Introduction to Theology, we will examine the role of the theologian. Hi, and welcome back to our lectures in the series Introduction to Theology. My name is Michael Lofton. This is the fourth and final lecture, which is going to be on the role of the theologian. Now, what is a theologian? Well, essentially a theologian is one who engages in theology or is an expert in the same. So, technically speaking, anybody is a theologian, provided that they are engaging in the subject of theology. But generally, whenever somebody speaks about a theologian, they're referring to somebody who actually has an expertise in the study of theology. Now, what is the purpose of the theologian? Well, the theologian's main purpose is to assist the church in obtaining a deeper understanding of special revelation, which is basically what is contained in sacred scripture and tradition. So the theologian isn't to come up with some new doctrine that nobody has ever heard of. No, what the theologian does is he or she reflects upon sacred scripture and sacred tradition and does their best to help the church obtain a deeper understanding of what's already contained in sacred scripture and sacred tradition. So it can't contradict what is in scripture or tradition, and it can't be new, something that isn't found in scripture and tradition. It's merely a development or a deeper understanding of the deposit of faith. Now, the theologian does not have an independent vocation that can set itself against the magisterium. In other words, the theologian must work in cooperation with the magisterium and under the magisterium. The theologian must be humble and submit his or herself to the magisterium. So it's not something that is opposed to the magisterium. Rather, it's a vocation that works in conjunction with the magisterium. So the theologian is never permitted to dissent from what the church teaches. Only under very rare circumstances can the theologian withhold assent of intellect and will, but this is only in those matters which are not definitive and binding. And this is only under very rare circumstances for the theologian, that is an expert who has really studied these issues, who has some serious difficulties with reconciling what is taught in the ordinary magisterium with what they have studied throughout church history and in theology. So this is a very, very rare circumstance. Ordinarily, all individuals, including the theologian, are to give their assent of intellect and will to anything that the church teaches. Now, what is the motivation for the theologian? Well, the theologian should pursue his work in order to attain greater knowledge of that which has been revealed, primarily for the purpose of knowing God better. So the theologian doesn't study theology merely for the sake of attaining greater knowledge about the subject, but in order to know God better so that we can grow in our understanding of Him and thus our relationship with God better. Now, prayer is an essential role for the theologian, as theology is more than merely understanding a subject better, but is directed towards understanding God better. It follows that it's essential that the theologian develop a deep life of prayer in conjunction with theological studies. So the theologian isn't merely just to kick back and study more about the faith, but they are to also actively engage in prayer, prayerfully asking God to help them have a greater understanding of the deposit of faith. So prayer is absolutely indispensable for the role of the theologian. Now, what is the attitude the theologian should have? Well, the theologian must be humble, especially when presenting something that he or she believes to be a deeper understanding of the deposit of faith, because if the position of the theologian hasn't been officially endorsed by the Catholic Church yet, assuming it's not contrary to what the Church teaches, there is no kind of security that the theologian can have that what they're saying is true. So they must be humble and willing to receive correction from the magisterium. Well, I hope you enjoyed this brief lecture on the role of the theologian, and I also hope that you enjoyed this course on the Introduction to Theology. Thank you for listening to this lecture in the series Introduction to Theology. If you would like to know more about the St. Jerome Center for Catechesis, please visit stjeromecenter.com.